I have no pocket, and I am so angry I don't have a pocket today. I'm glad there's a lot of slack. Oh, I don't want to sit, please. No. I believe that gospel was meant for me. That woman needs lots of help. Young folks, old folks, everybody come. Come around to summer school and make yourselves at home. Please check your chewing gum and iPads at the door. And we'll tell you Bible stories you might never heard before. No, I don't think it deserves that. Okay, hold on. I need this in front of my mouth. Okay. I am so wired today. I have never had so many wires on me. You know, it's story time this year, but the boys and girls have heard and talked about God's people and how they help and how they trust, and today about how they listen. Now, I think listening is probably one of the hardest things to do because we all have so many things we want to share, and we sometimes forget how to really listen. Jesus knew how hard listening can be. Be wary of false teachers, he said. Sometimes friends talk with you, and they suggest you do something that you know is wrong. Think carefully before acting. What do you feel God saying to you in your heart? Listen with your whole body. What if your good friend next door asked you to go swimming and told you when they were getting where they were going to go and what you would need to take with you? But you were too busy watching the man across the street on his new sun-powered lawnmower. You heard nothing except the word swimming. You ran inside to ask Mom, and she wanted the details before she said yes. But when you ran next door to ask, the dad over there said, "Oh, they'll be right back. They just had to run to the store for some last-minute things." So you ran back to the backyard and started playing with your dog, and too bad you weren't ready when your friend came by and stopped to pick you up. You couldn't go swimming that day. Here's another story to help us know how important listening can be. Mr. James and Mr. Wilson were good friends. They went to school together. They played football in high school. They met and married their high school sweethearts. They lived in the same town. Each had 2 children. Both decided they would build their own new houses because their families were growing. They went to a local college and they signed up for a class on home building. And the teacher told them all about the best house plans, the safest places to build, strongest materials that they could use, the best tools to purchase for the work, the most reliable stores from which to purchase materials, and where to find builders if they needed help. Well, Mr. James went every week to class, and he took copious notes. Mr. Wilson went to the first several weeks, but then he found out he had signed up to play basketball with the local team for the next season. He had a dinner date with his boss. It was a night meeting. A sick son, vacation time that if he didn't use right away, he'd lose. He had a really painful sore toe. But he came to the last week of classes and asked Mr. James if he'd loan him his class notes. Well, Mr. James, being the friend that he was, gave him a copy of them. I'm not sure Mr. Wilson had time to read all of them. Finally, the class was finished, and the friends were ready to build. They could hardly wait to start. Mr. and Mrs. James found a beautiful plot of land. Excuse me. It was over near the coast. There was a small hill with sturdy, rocky soil down beneath, a beautiful view with trees all around, lovely stream flowing downhill, a flat area where some topsoil could be brought in so they could have their garden. Mr. James ordered all the materials needed from reliable companies, and he had them delivered. He hired some experienced builders to help him start. He began building, followed all the instructions he'd learned in his class. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, the beautiful plot of land, not very far from where Mr. James and his family were building, had a beautiful view of the ocean, stream flowing down here onto the Wilsons' property, wonderful sandy beach. What fun he and his family would have playing in the sand and swimming. Off and on during the next months, they visited back and forth as they began to build. Once Mr. Wilson asked his friend, "Isn't it hard digging and drilling in that rocky soil? How can you get those posts into the ground?" Well, Mr. James answered, "I have a machine to help me, and my workers are very adept at construction. But aren't you afraid that the sand on your property might not hold the poles you're setting?" Mr. Wilson said, "Oh, no. I just wet the sand with water. It acts like cement." Well, Mr. James said, Soon, they were ready to put on the roofs of their houses. They decided to help each other. Since the construction workers had already built up the supports for the roofs, they figured they could do the rest. Mr. James had chosen a peak roof that allowed the water run off the roof, so he wouldn't have a problem of puddling. He wanted really strong nails and bolts to hold that roof in place. Mr. Wilson was sure his flat roof would be much easier to construct, and he wouldn't need such heavy-duty nuts and bolts. Besides, it wouldn't take as long to construct, he was sure. And it would be fun afterwards to sit on it and watch the ocean from their roof. Mr. James mentioned that the wind might catch it, and more easily some damage might be done. Maybe it would leak. But Mr. Wilson, he liked his idea best. Well, finally the houses were finished. Mr. Wilson and her two children, a boy and a girl, arrived in a big van with all the furniture, clothes, pots, pans, toys, everything from their old house. They parked the van in the driveway, and as it was a beautiful day, and the sun was sparkling all around, and the sand was warm beneath their big toes, they went up to the roof to wait for Dad, who was coming home with pizza. He had another night meeting with his boss. Mr. James drove the family van uphill to their new home. Excuse me, I said Mr. James? No, it was Mrs. James. Drove the van with the two children, a girl and a boy. They helped Mr. James, who was already there, unload the van and move in all the pots and pans, clothing, sleeping bags, food, and the other items from their first trip to their new home. Mrs. James got right to work on a picnic dinner, the first one under their new roof. But when the dinner was ready, well, they decided to take it out by the stream under the trees so that they could watch the ocean down below, too. It was a beautiful evening. That evening, the two friends called to congratulate each other on their great projects and how they'd been completed. Well, that night, there was a storm. Wind blew. The rain poured, ran over the houses and the sand. The ocean rolled and bubbled and boiled, and waves crashed into the rocks and gravel. Thunder clapped. Lightning ripped the sky. On the hill, all was quiet and cozy inside. Mr. and Mrs. James and their children were warm and comfy, cuddled down in their sleeping bags inside the brick house with the peaked roof and the sturdy floor perched on the strong rocky plot of ground. Mr. James had listened to his teachers and followed their directions to the letter. In the morning, Mr. James called Mr. Wilson on the phone. Couldn't get him, and he began to worry. Finally, he drove down the hill to see his friend, but when he got to the bottom, the house site, there was nothing there. No house, no garage, just pieces of wood, broken glass, scattered furniture, and some toys. A short distance down the road, he spotted the Wilson family sitting by their big van. The children were crying, and Mrs. Wilson did not look happy. Mr. Wilson was pacing back and forth, wringing his hands. Finally, Mr. Wilson said, "Last night, the wind blew, rattling the walls. Wind caught the roof and lifted it away. The windows were shattered. Water from the ocean rolled up under the house and washed away the sand. Everything fell apart and blew away. If only I had gone regularly to my building class at the local college. If only I had listened to my friend, and if only I had read and studied the copy of the class notes he'd given me. If only. Now we'll have to move back into our old too small house, and we have nothing to move into. There's nothing to go in the house." Well, Mr. James was still right there for his friend. "I'm sad that things didn't go well for you. You can take the class again, you know. All is not lost, and I'm sure you will listen the next time and ask questions and plan more carefully for success. But before going back to town, why don't you come up and have some breakfast with Mrs. James and the children and I? I'm hungry." Well, in the Bible, Jesus said, "God's truth is like a house built on a rock. It gives you support and strength. Those who hear the truth but do not follow it are like a house built on sand. The sand washes away and the house collapses." Remember all those things we talked about at story time. How God's people help, how they trust, and how they listen. Not only to friends, but to God. He's always there. Thank you.